this is just the beginning. That's the world that we live in. Let me help you believe in what we can do when we stand united. We are one with the world. We can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's all about we can't step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light. Oh, let's shine our light. We won't listen to what they're saying. We know it's just love that we're giving to this place that we call our home. We can.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's session about the transformative power of games of Catalyzing Change Week 2024. That was a great song. This is our new team song, by the way. And the session will be moderated by our amazing member, Lubna Dajani, who is the co-chair of the USA chapter and who is the founder of the organization Alternate. And we will have 4 amazing speakers through the conversation. And before starting, I would like to play a quick video of Sanjoy, who is the co-chair of the planning committee, CCW planning committee, to welcome you as well. So let's see.
I am Sanjoy Roy, the co-chair of the Catalyzing Change Week Programming Committee. Welcome to Catalyzing Change Week 2024. This is where we'll not just have conversations, but we'll actually see change. We'll see change makers, innovators within the social space. You'll meet government folks and funders. You'll see people who've done excellent good practice that we can learn from. And most importantly, it'll be a place to network, learn, and exchange ideas. So do dive right in to the Catalyzing Change Week 2024 and enjoy the experience.
So for stealing more time, I will give the word to Lubna.
Thank you, Hira. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us here today and for making the time, for my very, very esteemed and beloved friends and panelists today. As Sanjoy say, enjoy the experience, and we couldn't have a more interesting panel of speakers than who we have today to talk about creating experiences through games and the transformational power of games. I know I can speak from experience. My daughter is a gamer, my nephew is a gamer, my daughter is such a gamer that she turned it into her career, and I'm delighted for her, because gaming is really, to me, it's about funifying, and whether we call it serious games, if we want to change society, or for fun, what we need to do is find ways to, rather than escaping reality through games, but to use games to reset our reality. So I would love to, without further ado, pass it to, where are my speakers? Could we have a highlight so that I can see my speakers alone? And pardon me, everybody. And please, audience, if you can, feel free to engage with questions in the chat. We would love to have any of your participation, and we will try and get to them, which would make it a lot more fun and exciting. So Tammy, if I may pass it to you, I would be grateful for that, and take it away.
Limna, thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be here today with all of you. I'm Tammy Baumick. I'm the Vice President of Civility at Roblox. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Roblox, we are a global platform. We are a technology company, not a game. And we are not a game, and we are a global platform that allows young people of all ages, to be able to create games and experiences through free tools. We have a product called Studio, where people can go in, they can create these experiences and publish it out on our platform globally. We have been around for 20 years, believe it or not. So we've been around for quite a while. We now have over 70 million daily active users on our platform, which is mind-blowing because, we've grown very, very quickly. And the reason why we've grown so quickly is because we are empowering young people to be able to create experiences and connect with one another, like-minded people who want to connect, communicate, and share their amazing ideas. Young people are so creative, and the company was actually born out of the idea of empowerment because our CEO and founder, he was in the education space and realized that young people were using a product that he created after the official lesson to create 2D physics models where you had two cars crashing together and they had so much fun. So he decided, as a middle-aged man, that he should not be creating these experiences himself, that he should empower these young people to be able to create. We now have millions of developers on the platform creating every single day. We have over 2 million developers and creators. One of the things that we see every day is the power of the platform to really, really drive change. There's change in many ways, and specifically focusing on the topic today, there is a studio, it's called Technovation, and they put together a whole plan using mentors from their coding camps and their teachers, along with mentors from the Roblox team, to brainstorm and explore what a climate-focused game could look like. The result was an experience called Planet Roblox. It was a game that teaches girls around the world how to fight climate change and inspires them to learn how to be problem solvers in their own communities, all while having fun. And how do we all learn the best? It's by not even realizing that you're learning. It's by having fun. So, because the platform has incredible reach, the power to really, really drive change really exists in gaming. It really exists through platforms like Roblox to drive awareness, drive that education. So that's just some of the things that we do. And then just a quick blurb about myself. I lead civility at Roblox, and civility is all about I'm very lucky. My team focuses on working with global partners from around the world, safety NGOs, academics, researchers, to drive evidence-based research, to make sure that we are educating and driving, closing the generation gap in terms of digital knowledge. So we produce a lot of materials, podcasts, what have you, that empower parents to help their young people grow up to be savvy digital citizens. And then again, materials that empower young people to be able to navigate this next version of the internet, whatever it's going to be, as well as AI. So again, we are all about helping people to thrive through Roblox, not only just on Roblox. And with that, I will turn it over to Jasno.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tammy. My name is Jasno Francoeur. I'm a little bit of an odd man out in the sense that I did not start my career in games. I actually was a Disney animator for about 12 years. I did work on one game. We did work on projects in between movies, and I did work on the Aladdin, maybe that's showing my age, but the Aladdin Sega Genesis game, which is kind of a side scroller. And then I came to DigiPen in 2004, and interestingly, DigiPen, even though we are known as a game school, we service also, or have been servicing at least over the last number of years, the film industry as well. The reason why that's a little tricky is that there really is no film industry in the state of Washington, so to speak. So most students who do come to learn that aspect do have to go to Vancouver and other markets down the coast, et cetera. So I really like what you were saying about the power of the platform, and I do think that's maybe where the future lies in terms of shaping young minds and actually having the funding to do this, because you do have a great I think, moral responsibility when you have a technology that can reach X amount of people. And we really felt that at Disney as well. One of the reasons I was very attracted to Disney is that they were able to package into their movies lessons. Now, granted, sometimes it seemed a little repetitive. I'm sure we all got tired of the orphans in every single film. But usually every film had, we would usually say, well, this is a boy film or a girl film. And for instance, Mulan was about diversity and about empowerment for females. And sometimes I would forget the actual reach that these movies would have until, of course, I would go out and I would speak publicly, or I would have people just reach out to me and say, this last movie that you made really was impactful for my daughter. And then I really just started thinking about that essentially, what we had was a very powerful delivery system for a message. So then the question is, what is that message, and what are the moral implications? Because you don't, by the same token, you don't want to be too didactic or too preachy. You do want to entertain. And games, the moment you say games, naturally you do think about entertainment, right? You think about the fun factor. Then, of course, you add the term serious games to it, and then it almost seems to mitigate it. But it doesn't really. And that, of course, is so expansive, because you mentioned the environment, but it could be so many other issues that you're addressing. It could be public safety. It could be, it could be art. It could be politics. It could be a surgery simulator. It could be, a flight simulator. So it could be things as dubious as the military to things as great as I said, working within the medical constraints of the medical industry. But then there's also, and these are things I'm sure we'll dig into when we get into our conversation, but then there's also the issue of localization. At DigiPen, I have been not only the program director, but the chair overseas for a number of years in Singapore, in Spain. I've also set up our program in Thailand. And one thing I can tell you is that, there is a vast cultural difference, and it's very hard necessarily to have a universal product. And that was one thing that we were always aiming for at Disney, was to have a story that was so universal that we wouldn't have to worry as much about localization. But at any rate, I've been at DigiPen for 20 years in the capacity of program director for about 12 here at Redmond. And then simultaneously was the chair of the animation program for about 8 years. And that's that. I'm not sure who's next, but I will hand it over to another colleague.
Jen?
So it's my turn. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks, Nubna, for the very kind invitation. So my name is Jane Yao. I'm a researcher by background. So many years ago, I did a master's degree in e-learning, and then I came across mobile learning, the topic like learning with mobile devices, and this, I really got fascinated in this. And I did my doctoral degree. And then I also saw a lot of work done by UNESCO, which, so they created a Mobile Learning Week in 2010 that uses mobile devices to, for marginalized communities to provide them with education, and especially with solar charge mobile devices and offline materials. So this product provided a lot of educational opportunities in places like Africa, where they have many low resources. And then I'm also a project manager of the European project. So we are looking at how to use games to reach citizens through games. And we want to collect a lot of data to find out the climate preferences by the citizens. And we want to reach around 3 million citizens through games. So this will be in the form of a game ad through popular games, so like Candy Crush or Angry Birds, when players are, because there's a large market, 3 billion gamers in the world, and so we put the game ad in this. So we've just had a first trial And we actually we work with the United Nations, and for 1 week in February, and we managed to reach 400,000 players, and we got about 4,000 people to respond to a survey, which was about climate policies that they preferred. So there were about 10 questions asking them about, you know, policies about green energy or transport. And we had 4,000 responses. So we're currently still analyzing this. And so this was a trial for the for our upcoming studies, and we will upscale this. And 2 weeks ago, the UN launched the it's called the Climate Promise, which is a very, very ambitious plan to reduce carbon emissions like in the world. So they're mobilizing all of the UN systems, and they want to reduce this by next year. And so they're mobilizing all of the UN systems with the financially and with the human resources. And we are aligning our project with this climate promise. And we want to, we're working also with many of the game industries to put the ad inside also their games. And we want to reach 3 million players this way to collect the data which are needed to inform policymakers of, you know, what global citizens want, and then we will pass these data to them, and with the hope that, you know, it will influence them to change their climate policies better suited currently to the world, and to reduce carbon emissions. So yeah, so that's a short introduction about me and our project.
Thank you so much. You can all see why I'm so excited, because not only does it make it fun, it actually is engaging, and it's creating the change that we're seeking to change. I will come back to this after Benjamin, please.
So I'm Benjamin Ellinger. I'm the program director at DigiPen Institute of Technology for Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Game Design, a combination technical and design degree. I'm also the vice president of software production there. But it's I've been there for 20 years, just slightly longer than Jasno, but only by months. But my background professionally is as a programmer and game designer, and I've done that for decades. I've been, you know, even back into the early 80s, where I started a paper game company called Steve Jackson Games in Austin, Texas. And I've worked on real-time strategy games. I've worked on massively multiplayer games. I've worked for companies from Origin Systems to Monolith to Microsoft to all sorts of other ones out there. And so that's all my, you know, professional background that is, you know, puts me in a position where I understand both the technical and the design side of it. And there are those two aspects actually come in when we talk about serious games, right? When we talk about thinking of it from the design side, we're always talking about that when we talk about what humans do to learn things, right? Any things, right? They play. This is the fundamental mode in which humans learn. It's not just humans. Cats, dogs, most mammals learn through play. It's more fundamental than writing. It's more fundamental than music. This is something that people overlook because they think of games as, oh, it's the frivolous thing for kids. It's like, no, it is fundamental not just to the human experience, but to a large number of animals as well. It's very fundamental, more fundamental than civilization and law, right? So taking play seriously is something you must do if you really want to make a difference in how people learn things, how they change, how they alter their behaviors in a way they find positive. Play is the most fundamental path. And so that's where, wherever it is, whether it's from the Roblox side, where, you know, creating a platform that, you know, really targets kids in a way to, you know, tap their creativity for creating opportunities for play as well as playing it, whether it's something like, you know, one of the things we're doing at DigiPen is something that isn't a game per se, but it is a project to help train surgeons for doing remote, you know, laparoscopic surgery. why would we be doing that? We're a game school. What does that have to do with this? Oh, you're practicing something, playing effectively, and using technology that's virtual technology. I mean, look, it's only 1 inch away from games, right? It just has a serious purpose behind it. But all play ultimately has a serious purpose. And so when we look at that, there's that design side of what we're trying to do to make things more engaging so people can learn and change and make something a positive difference in what they want to do or their own knowledge. But there's also the technical side, because it turns out that game technologies, which were basically there to simulate virtual worlds of lesser to greater degrees, that applies to a lot of things. That's why you see things like the Unreal Engine being used for movies, but also for realistic simulations, like this surgery one that I'm talking about. We use the Unreal Engine for it. Because if you want to simulate something that feels like the real world or some abstraction of the real world with different, rules for reality, game engines are the way to go. That's what we specialize in. So there's both that design and technology side that really integrate with trying to make something that is altering the world, right? The reality we experience, how we want to change it. Well, game technologies, we can simulate it there and figure out what the right thing to do is.
My God, thank you so much, all of you. So what I say, we clearly have to start a collaboration here at Catalyst to bring all of this together. And I know we have other collaborations around talking about if school was a game. And it needs to be fun, because life
School
needs
is a
to
game.
It's not even that at DigiPen. I know my daughter went there. but actually, I think fun and games and game-based learning, as you were saying, is as you were speaking in my previous panel, was on human rights in AI and ethics, and I think fun and learning through play is a fundamental life right, not just human right. And maybe we need to start injecting that into it. But somehow I think when the artists and developers who want to go into gaming, they're not going into gaming for they're not coming to DigiPen or other schools, like, well, not that anything compares, but to to create serious games. And maybe we need to take that serious, so to take gaming seriously rather than labeling a game that has an impact to be just a serious game. It's a meaningful game, it's an impactful game. So how do we shift? Because I think, if I understand correctly, most the incentives are not there to go into what we're labeling serious games, or correct me if I'm wrong.
So, just from my perspective, and this is very much from the Roblox perspective, user-generated content is so powerful. And, we've seen it, we've seen the power of it in terms of creating an overall network effects. Because we are not a studio, Roblox is not a studio, we are not producing a game. And so the relevancy of what we produce is all created by young people born out of their imagination. It's authentic to them, it's important to them, and we, bring millions of people together to help to communicate with one another and to connect with one another on topics that they feel is genuinely important for them. So I think the success of Roblox has really been authenticity and coming from a youth perspective. And I think very oftentimes we forget how important making sure that the youth voice is incorporated in the things that we do. We get so caught up in creating and telling young people what to do or what they should be doing. And with all of the research that I've done with young people, most of the time we get it wrong, in terms of older generations. And so I think that one of the things that is super impactful for making sure we are driving ultimate impact for climate change for this important area and other areas of importance as well is making sure there is an opportunity for an uprising where it allows youth voice.
Yeah, and I think making it accessible, and I believe the platform is, I'm not sure how you monetize, and I don't want to go there, but it is freely available to anybody who wants to experiment in developing. But Jasno, you're the director of the program. Do you see so you have your students, but you have also I know you have an obligation for the school to have the level of employment out when they graduate. Do you see a discrepancy between what we preach, that we need to bring more fun and then where the market is incentivizing these young people who are more than capable of developing these games?
Well, we certainly have had some student games that have themes, and climate change, of course, is ever present, and that has been a theme of a number of games. But it's I would submit to you that those games still are driven by the fun factor. And when you and I were talking, I kind of mentioned this, that this is a bit of a problem in that, and maybe this is a uniquely American problem as opposed to some of the other countries where we do business. We're not socialists. You know, our students do accrue massive amounts of debt. There's a lot of eggs they're putting into this basket of finding gainful employment. And by the way, when we say gainful employment, our accreditation, it kind of keeps us honest. It says that we have to place 70% of our students into a job that is commensurate to the skill set that they learned while they were at DigiPen. That means not working at Starbucks. That means not even being a game tester. So it's a very narrow scope for both us and for the student as well to hit that metric, particularly right now. As you guys know, there's a lot of paroxysms going on in the game industry. And to hit that metric of 70%, which, by the way, we were 69% last year, which to me is miraculous considering what's going on, especially this year. This year is a banner year. We have no idea where it's going to land, but starting with Activision and all the different layoffs. So there's a lot of pressure on both us to place those students, and there's pressure on the students as well. So I do think there's more of a temptation, therefore, for the students to feel like, these projects are going to be our calling card, and they need to be AAA level. They need to be more commercial, perhaps. So I'm not saying that you're not going to find altruistic students. They are there. And perhaps we could provide a broader platform for encouraging those types of games. And I know, Ben, you could probably even speak more to this because you really are embedded much more on the game side. Obviously, just so you know, on my side, while we are encouraging our students through learning Unreal, particularly as we transform the program, everyone is basically an incipient designer because you can do that in Unreal and learning blueprints and whatnot. But ultimately, our students provide the assets that go into the games. And one of the pillars of DigiPen is interdisciplinary learning, which means that on a game team, you have so many different disparate talents and knowledge bases. You've got programmers, developers, game designers, composers, artists. And so that means that you need everyone to be working from the same piece of sheet music. So that means that these projects would necessarily, from the giddy up, have to be really focused into this idea of, yes, we're going to make a project, and yes, it could be a good calling card, and it could be salable. It could help me find employment. But like I said, the students put so many eggs in the basket of these projects being a calling card and getting them work that they might trend more towards something that would be more commercial and less altruistic. Oh, you are muted?
I said maybe we need to change the accreditation process where it requires a bit more impact employment based.
We've been talking about this.
Ben, did you care to add to what Jasno said? I know he was passing the baton to you.
Sure. So one of the ways I tend to think about this, right, is in our project classes, right? We call them game project classes, but of course, it doesn't have to be a formal game at all, right? I mean, any type of thing someone would want to be considered a serious game or anything along those lines is, allowed and encouraged. But of course, most people coming to DigiPen, they want to make what would be recognizable as a conventional game. That's usually what inspired them to come and do this. And we're aware of that. And, of course, while we create a space for people to be able to explore different things and encourage them to do it, we know that the vast majority of the time, that's not the path they'll go down to while they're at school. But while they're at school, and that's one of the important things that even as We will say it jokingly at our open houses of where we will, tell students, it's like, look, DigiPen's actually an elaborate trick, right? What we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to make games. And so we're going to fool you into doing something you think is you want to do that's engaging, that you want to, I want to make games. And in the process, we're going to teach you how to create art, to create music, to design things, to code in ways that don't have to be applied to games at all. But we're going to use games as the method of how we teach you this stuff and keep you engaged in learning it. Because of course, being engaged while learning is how you learn effectively. And so when we do that, we know we have planted the seeds, and we're upfront about that with students. We have planted the seeds where down the line in their careers, they will have all the skills necessary to take down this path if they decide to. And so some students will get to that point right after they graduate, but not very many, right? But others, once they're in the game industry for a while, they will decide that, wait, they want to do something that isn't just commercial games. They want to go into some other area. And so they may do that if that opportunity arises for them. They may want to do something where down the road, 10 years in, where, the game industry is hard, it's volatile, it has, lots of heavy workload on you. And at some point they may decide, wait a minute, I want to go off and join this nonprofit, join this other, endeavor that's going to try and make a bigger difference in the world, not just create another game. And they will have all the skills necessary to do that. So that's part of what we do as a school. I mean, we are a school, so we're not, here to tell students what they have to do, right? We're very big believers in the autonomy of the students to pursue what they're interested in. But we are caretakers in the sense to make sure that they're well set up to take it to places that we know that they may be more interested in as they're older and have a broader view of the world.
So I'd love to, also really draw attention to the fact that, at the end of the day, we're all trying to educate around climate change and, other social impact areas that are of great importance. The struggle that a lot of nonprofits have, a lack of money, right? Everyone's struggling to try to figure out how do we establish reach without big dollars, big advertising dollars. And recently at Roblox, we have a lot of different brands, big brands, global brands that are experimenting. They're coming to the Roblox platform, and they're creating experiences. They're hiring developers to create experiences that represent the brand and the mission. And it's not necessarily just to sell things, right? It is again, communicating their mission. One brand was an exercise brand called Alo Yoga. They created this meditation and mindfulness experience. Within the first 5 days, we had 8 million people come in and meditate together. And the feedback that we got back was that a lot of these kids who were going through really tough times, they had never tried meditation. It was the first time they'd done it. And it brought such peace to them. And so if you think about it, it's like 8 million people in 5 days. How do you reach that? I'm not saying that every experience has that level of impact, but it's a start. It's an opportunity to investigate opportunities on different platforms and the development of games to communicate really things that are important and drive evidence-based research content around climate change to combat a lot of the sensationalized headlines and the misinformation that is out there. So I think that it's an opportunity. So just if you would think about gaming in a very different light as a powerful channel.
Right. Game-based advertising, and rather than advertising, and I will bridge back to what Jane was saying. When you were describing the project, it was also inserting, right, like also placing the surveys and such in existing games. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So I would absolutely agree with what Tammy was saying about using games to reach citizens. So in the research project that we're working on, we are not developing any games, but we are actually using that as a channel, as a communication channel between citizens and policymakers. So, and a precursor project that one of our project partners did a few years ago together with the UN was the People's Climate Vote. And they actually, so through, again, just through the game ad, they actually got 1.2 million people to respond, and it's the largest survey of public opinion on climate change. So 50 countries participated. It was in 17 languages, and they found out many preferences of climate policies. So including the first one, conservation of forests and land, and solar, wind, and renewable power as well. And so, using games, so we can put this globally, and there's also very reliable market research on, which games are played by whom, or like in different geographical regions. So you can target the ad in different games to, get maybe perhaps underrepresented groups or marginalized groups, or people who don't usually vote, or have the time to vote. So you can get a much larger sample and a better represented sample, and get the
Primary research, I mean, it seems like that's the most effective primary research tool. You can you're getting straight to people, and it proves that through gameplay, it's through a fun environment, not this high pressure. I think learning should be facilitated through fun and doing and playing rather than dictated. Now, but all of this is also in placing in popular games. But I remember some years ago, my sister was a huge fan of this Farmville and then SimCity before, and we've played. So these are not necessarily only youth, and I'm a big fan of shrinking the divide across all of whether it's gender or age or what have you. But couldn't we see a future or a game, which is what I would love us to create as part of this collaboration that I'm talking you all into, that we can build actually a game, and I'd love it to be a project there, where the actual gameplay is affecting change through the gameplay itself. Yes, we can inject also the surveys and the data points that we are collecting so that it's the facts, but through the gameplay and even through the game creation, that we can together create that world that we want to go to live in, rather than a fantasy world escaping the one we're here. So what do you think would be an enabler or a hinderer to that? And we already know that the UN and EU and others there are some funding in that regard.
You would need a lot of funding to compete in the sphere with games like Roblox. That's the unfortunate part. So piggybacking on what Tammy said, money is always the big issue for these smaller developers. And even if I'm looking at that writ small within our own game projects at DigiPen, and granted these are students, some of them older, some of them not. Some of those teams can have upwards of 20 people. But even so, they're doing, well, not really a vertical slice, but they're doing a very limited experience. They're not doing a full game. And I know, Ben, you can speak much more to this as someone who's done this professionally. But it's just a monstrosity trying to coordinate all these different talents and trying to continue to iterate on the fun factor. Because that, as you and I spoke yesterday, the fun factor, unlike movies, which is more passive entertainment, interactive entertainment means that you have multiple green lights. And so you're never done iterating on that fun factor. You're iterating almost to the bloody end, which means that you need full timers who are doing this, not just people who are in their ivory towers saying, hey, this would be great if we could do this. You need people who are getting paid real money to sit down and really invest their time into this. Because otherwise, to me, I would say, well, you already have companies like Roblox that are obviously interested in this type of thing. It's almost better to piggyback off of their platform because they already have established users. They already have a product, right? So I think, and not to be a naysayer, but I do remember talking to a consortium, very similar to what you're talking about, a group of like-minded people who wanted to create a game. This was in Europe, and the person who was sort of in your position, she was from Latvia, and she was pitching this to me, this idea that the game specifically dealt with cultural biases. And of course, then I really began to think about this. Well, number one, I said, well, how long have you been working on this? She said about 8 months. I'm like, well, if this was an actual real game team, they would have finished it by now. So let's start there. Secondly, when the interview was done, we were making casual conversation, and I was like, well, really, who's your target audience? You know, I mean, not to sound extreme, but is your target audience bigots? Because how does a bigot know they're a bigot? How do they know to play this game? And then she really startled me because at the very end I asked, well, what do you think of Americans? And she goes, well, I think they're fat, lazy, and stupid. I'm like, maybe you should play your own game. But at any rate, I'm just saying there's a lot of pitfalls to trying to develop something from scratch because there's just so much infrastructure that you need in order to build it and to sustain it.
Yes, but unless you are part of the creation, you may not take as much ownership of the change, and we all need to take part of the change. But when do you have
Yeah, so we talk about using games for these type of things, right? And the problem is saying games, it's such a broad term when we think about the scope of something. We could take the remaining part of this session and I could live on camera build you a complete game. It would be a card game. It would just be a variant of poker. I mean, it wouldn't be anything special. It would be that, but I could do it, right? I mean, I could write a set of rules based on, foundation of typical cards and poker type of betting games, and we could do it in 15 minutes, right? So that's a game. I just created a game. It's amazing. See, this is easy, right?
Yeah. Yes, but even
And
you
then
said poker,
there's
but
building World of Warcraft. You want to build a World of Warcraft competitor? You have $1 billion. If you don't have $1 billion, go away, right? I mean, it's like just not even interested, right?
yes. But is that what we're talking about? We're talking about
Right. Well, so this is exactly the point, right? So both of those things, World of Warcraft, the most successful, over time, massively multiplayer game ever, made billions of dollars, huge amounts, right? And that poker game are both labeled games, right? These are very different ends of the scale, right? So because of that, when we think about what we're doing for games, right? What we really mean is that we're doing something that is interactive. We are doing something that has, and there's no real definition for truly what's a game and what isn't, right? But we can talk about engaging experiences, right? An interactive, engaging experience, sure, we'll call that a game. Why not? And so if we say that, the question is, how do we use that? How do we leverage that interactive, engaging style of experience for our purposes to do better in the world and change the world in a positive way? But thinking in terms of the big games, the AAA ones, even the AA ones and single A ones. I mean, a game like Hades, right? I mean, wonderful game, one of the best ones ever made. It's done by a small indie studio. Oh, wait, that still cost millions and millions of dollars to make, right? I mean, it's still gigantic by normal scales. So if instead we're thinking in terms of how do you get smaller projects, right? And not little tiny ones necessarily, but smaller projects that actually have an impact. And I think that places like Roblox have a better insight into that, where it's like, if you're not concerned about making it commercially viable in the sense of this individual thing I'm putting out needs a marketing campaign, needs millions of dollars poured into the development that you have to pay up front, has to get that money back. That's the nightmare, right? That I think in a lot of ways, I mean, if you manage to figure out a way to do that, cool, but that's the hard path. If you instead go down something more akin to what Roblox is doing, where you say, look, we have people who are interested in doing this. Can we make it easy enough for them to create this experience that it doesn't require millions of dollars of professional game development? You're not hiring somebody like me to do this, right? And instead get it to where they can make something that has enough interest, is engaging enough for a wide group of people that will have more impact. And part of the trick that I will almost bet you that Roblox understands, right, is that the idea when you're doing this type of stuff that you're going to get a better reaction, more engagement, more people interested in it because you did this super polished AAA version. It's just not true, right? This is in the same sense of where, I don't know, Markiplier on YouTube or somebody like that, right? Those type of people are not making, a huge impact. They're not getting millions of viewers because they're super slick, highly produced stuff. The authenticity of having it be a little, from a professional point of view, lower skill, right? I mean, where it's not as polished, it's not as perfect, it's not as perfectly. That's almost a benefit because now it feels more real and you can feel like you're more a part of it. And that's a big part of engagement, that connection to the people who are making it. So there is a path that doesn't go down the exact same way as trying to fund serious commercial game development. If instead you can go through, whether it's a platform like Roblox or other ones, I mean, you could even go down the path of trying to create other things and compete with Roblox, for it. Be a little rough. They're pretty far ahead. But if you go down that path, that's something where you might be able to get funding that is thinking in terms of a platform, not a product, right? That's the path I think that you could actually make a difference for. And of course, taking one like Roblox that already exists is probably a more effective path to, if you can get some funding from some agency somewhere to do an initiative through them, that's probably going to be more effective than trying to start up a serious game studio and try and throw millions of dollars at making a commercial product that's a serious game.
So
Well,
I would agree, Ben. I think that I'm sorry.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
say democratize the game development. It's not about competing with Roblox or making a commercially viable impact game studio. It's really about shifting the narratives. It's shifting how we use. I mean, companies are spending, from back in the days of Second Life, they're spending millions on immersive or now we call it metaverse for advertising. It's the way we communicate. So we could use games and gameplay and these mechanics to actually affect the and to achieve, doing well, doing good. And so we can still deliver on the business objectives, but in a way that is not devastating and in a way that can start shifting mindsets. But go ahead, Tammy.
Historically, gaming, since the beginning of time, gaming has been what has driven a lot of innovation, technological innovation, business model innovation, and the same here. I think what we're seeing is an opportunity, and I think we need to change the definition of gaming. It's actually one of the reasons why we don't use the word gaming at Roblox, because I think there are old preconceived ideas of what a game is. And we use the word experiences because what we see at Roblox is a mirroring effect of real life and digital life. And the line between the two there's no more line. I mean, people move, especially young people move seamlessly in and out from one to the other. So first of all, I think changing that definition and that preconceived notion of what a game is really, really important. I also think that, making sure that, Ben, to your point, is that people, especially nonprofits that don't have a lot of money, they have, one coin to put towards it. It has to be at the grassroots level, right? And it's one of the things, instead of like trying to create your own wheel, jump onto the platforms that have achieved scale, because at this point, it is about trying to find scale, right? We know what the educational points are to reduce, to impact climate change, right? So for example, when I first started this conversation, I pointed out this team, Technovation, and they did exactly the right thing. They gathered 40 young women across 19 countries to brainstorm ideas about how to create a game that takes people through an obstacle course, and through that obstacle course, they learn about how to reduce their carbon footprint. and slow down global warming. And so hopefully that education then transfers into the daily habits in their real life. That was their goal. And so they're continuing to evolve and innovate on that experience. This is just one example. There could be, many examples depending upon what you're trying to focus on. But my point is that the opportunity for sure is there. And that I think that gaming is a very narrow point of view. I think that we need to take a look at experiences and the opportunity to drive and impact change.
Yes. And it's experiences, it's game mechanics, it's fun as opposed to gaming per se. And I also don't think that a game needs to be as complex, or I wish Asha was here. She's one of our members and she has this adorable game. And it is like flipping cards, but it's gorgeous and it takes you through learning and it's fun playing and you can affect change. So we need to also, I mean, especially you guys as educators, that we need to get out of this mindset that we continue to use the framing that has created the problem we're in today. So it doesn't have to be $1 billion studio. It doesn't have to be this or that or a competition. We absolutely can, I continue to repeat, need to compete to complete each other's work to change. So we can paint a mural of the future that we want, and then we can invite everyone who has a paintbrush or anything in their hand that can contribute. This way we can own the future that we're creating. But I want to make sure, okay, Jasno, and then I'd love to hear from you, Jane, because you're very quiet, and you have such wealth of, because you have actually implemented and created outcomes. So please. Did you want to say, Jasno? I know I cut you off.
Yeah, no, I was just piggybacking off of what we were saying earlier. I think maybe the way forward is just as we say with our own students, like lower your scope, because students doing something for the first time, they don't know what they don't know what they don't know, which makes them very brave and also very stupid, because they'll take on invariably the reason why, and we've been accused of inculcating crunch culture, but it's the students who crunch themselves because they end up, and Ben, this is true.
Oh God, yes.
And it happens at the smallest level. It happens when they're freshmen, and then it carries forward into their projects. And so they end up creating more work for themselves that is just not necessary. So I think there's a sweet spot in terms of game development. And I think the path forward, Jane was mentioning Angry Birds, but it got me to thinking mobile development, right? Mobile games are certainly much cheaper. There's a game, I don't know, Ben, if you ever played this game called Dumb Ways to Die.
No.
Really fun game. It was an iPad game, very simple. And in many ways, I think the mechanics were really driven by the art because it was very funny. And of course, you would always die in some really dumb way, which was always very exciting. I played this game though for a year before I realized it was a serious game. This game had been developed in the UK or in Australia because people were walking in front of trains and so dying in this way. So the game was meant to raise awareness. And I'm not sure how they missed the boat on this because obviously it became a popular game, but it wasn't really until the very end that you realize, oh, this is to raise awareness for this, that, and the other. But I do think that there's a lot of global reach with these, because you can get smaller developers, obviously you can sell your game on Steam and then just hope that it catches fire. You never really know until you put something out there how it's going to be received, of course. And that really has to do with any type of entertainment, whether it's interactive or whether it's linear like film. But I wanted to give space for Jane because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. So we are in the middle of our 3-year project. So we are still waiting for the data to come in and all of this. But we have a big goals and big objectives and big things we want to achieve. So basically we're testing whether games can be an effective communication channel. So, and we are using climate emergency in our example, but it could be also be applied in health situations or in a pandemic situation. For example, last year we were also invited in the global health community because they have problem with reaching their patients. So they also came to us and they want to use our methodology and we will of course share that with them once you know, we have everything established, and we show that, you know, this is working, and so on. And one of the things we also want to achieve is to make a sustainable business model for you know, for game companies. How, you know, how can they use this game company you know, to support participation and social engagement, to, you know, to use this for the social good. And obviously we, you know, we use these as education awareness in different global problems. And we also in our project, we also co-design the activities with the citizens, and also we will be analyzing the data that we collect with the citizens. So we want to generally increase the, you know, the scientific literacy of, you know, of global citizens. They are also very interested in climate policies, and this is one way to influence behavioral change as well, by actively engaging in the problem. You know, then we can also then advance the Sustainable Development Goals and climate action. And yeah, and finally, just giving as many global citizens the chance to voice their concern, you know, about you know, climate change, and have a active, so not being just passively voicing, but we will be collecting the data, and this will actually go to global policy makers, you know, with the high chance that they will be influenced when they see all of this hard data. So these are our project aims.
As you see, there's a lot of, it may have not been traditionally, but there is momentum in changing the way we leverage our technology and the tools we have, and play and fun, rather than calling it game, is critical. And we need to shift how the thinking we use when we think about how we want to solve the challenges, rather than let ourselves be limited with what the constraints that we have today, because that's not what we're creating. We don't want to recreate today. We don't want to run away from today. We want to create what we know we can achieve if we just had this mindset shift and we made it accessible. There were a lot of really cool questions in the chat, and I don't know that we have time to be able to stay late, but some wanted to hear more about psychology and in game mechanics. It's all about understanding the psychology, which is what makes it really powerful, and ties it actually to my earlier session around empathic AI. And when you combine, you know, psychology and game mechanics with the power of AI, then you see the immense power and influencing power of such technologies and such capabilities when the arts come together with the sciences and technology to in concert. To create change. The other question was, and I will give you room for the panelists to answer all of these again, very, very briefly, is how can they join this effort? Well, we will start, and I'm grateful to all of my Catalyst Secretariat staff here that are with us, and we will be starting a collaboration. And hopefully we can seed it with your participation. Roblox, you're on the hook, of course, Tammy. The DigiPen, you can't get away from me. And Jane, I would love for us to see how we can further collaborate, as you know, so that we can extend the work that you already have a foot in the door on this work. It is being proven out with proven outcomes. We don't have to wait another 3 years. To know. There are some who shared a lot in what they're doing in this, so the chat will be saved, and please express your interest. And I don't know, Hira or Maria can say something at the end, but if anybody else wants to answer on the game mechanics and psychology, and if I missed anything else, please step in, Hira, for me. Thank you.
Well, we're talking about on the psychology side. I mean, from the game design theoretical foundation side, right? I mean, there's when we talk about psychology as relates to game design from an academic and educational point of view, the relationship that we use is say that psychology is to game design as mathematics is to programming. And so psychology is not game design, mathematics is not programming. But psychology is foundational to game design. You can't, your limitations of what you can do with interactive experience design, games or not, is limited by your knowledge of psychology. Just like what you can do in programming is limited by your knowledge of mathematics. And so they're not the same thing, but they are linked in a fundamental way. And so in psychology, one of the ways, I mean, there's lots of parts that feed in. Lots. I mean, it's foundational. It's mathematics compared to programming, right? So huge amounts of psychology, cognitive science in particular, matter for interactive design. But one of the ways we talk about it as a fundamental part for engaging experiences that we create is thing, I've termed it engagement theory. That's just, what I call the theory that we've come up with at DigiPen as a umbrella for this, with psychology as the foundation. But we talk about engaging rather than fun, because fun is a little too amorphous from our point of view when we're taking it from an academic side. So we say engagement. Engagement is made up of autonomy, mastery, connection, and sensation. These are the 4 fundamental human styles of engagement. And so you can combine them in different ways. And so you get things like, mastery and sensation is flow. Then I don't mean flow in a generic sense. I mean, as in the traditional psychology term flow. And so you can get some combinations of them that get some more unique, exactly interesting ones, catharsis and other ones. But those 4 are the foundation. That comes from psychology. It's self-determination theory and sensation-seeking theory. And so that type of understanding is critical, right? If you don't have that foundation of psychology underneath, you're kind of dancing around a little too lightly, where you don't really know how to direct your designs to make something truly engaging, or why they're not working properly, or not working properly for a particular audience or for a particular purpose. And so that's just one high level, bit of it. But there's all these other parts about what actually makes something engaging to people, the patterns that you can use. And there are dark patterns in there as well, right? The difference between super engaging and so fun I can't put it down, and highly addictive in a way that is psychologically damaging. We even use the term of, oh, this is addictive gameplay. That's really good. Well, it could be, but you'll note the problem there, right? I mean, it's so understanding that psychology behind it. Like when we teach our game designers, they practically get psychology minors as part of their education, because they have to. If you don't understand that, you're not going to have the depth of knowledge you need to both be effective in creating engaging designs, but also be responsible in creating engaging designs and do things ethically. And we put a big emphasis on that as well. So yeah, psychology is a foundational part of all design.
Well, I'm sorry.
In progress.
And I'm sorry we lost. We had to drop out. She had a very hard stop, but she apologized and didn't want to interrupt. But in the chat, as I also knew, I just want to thank everybody. I don't want to make sure that everybody has maybe one last. If Jane or Jasno, if you have a closing remark, I will definitely be working with our collaborations coordinator to start a collaboration, and we'll circle back with all of you. And I hope we can maybe you can host us at some point. I know you host events at DigiPen.
Absolutely, yeah.
For us to have the Catalyst community and extend the reach and to maybe do a competition of co-creation of a simple game, since you can do one in 15 minutes.
Could you make an addictive game in 15 minutes?
That's harder. I didn't say it was going to be good.
Well, I would just like to say in closing, I just love the title, The Transformative Power of Games. Or as we were saying earlier, at DigiPen, we also use the term real-time interactive simulation. That's just a mouthful. It doesn't sound as much fun as game or fun. But there's definitely a difference between that and other forms of entertainment. And it harkens back to what he was just saying about the sort of the addictive factor. You know, you can play 9 hours of a game and you can lose track of time. But if you binge watch, you know, 9 hours of Breaking Bad, you're going to pay for it at some level because it's not interactive. So I do think there really is a power of engagement, particularly, and I'm sad she had to leave, but particularly with what Roblox is doing with the whole sandbox idea. Because the exposition happens through the gameplay. And no two games are the same. So you feel somehow like you can keep coming back to this experience. Whereas you've seen Breaking Bad, maybe you're not going to watch it again. But games you can keep coming back to. So I do think it is the perfect venue to package this, right? And I do look forward to future collaboration and finding other ways of reaching these audiences with these very important issues like climate change and other issues.
The whole of the sustainability development goals, the whole of redefining what human rights are, and into ethics, into policy, into law. So we have a big task ahead of us. We just have to break from the mindsets that limit us and our limiting beliefs of what we can and can't do, or how much budget we need, or the fact that it lacks, because there's plenty of money stuck stagnant. Much of it's spent on greenwashing, but we'll we'll leave that.
We'll talk about that in part 2.
Yes, Tammy, and then we'll close. I think yes. I mean Tammy, Jane. Sorry, forgive me.
Yeah, so I just have a closing comment. Yeah, so our project is called GREAT. It stands for Games Realizing Effective and Effective Transformation. Yeah, please follow us on it's greatproject.gg, and we have a LinkedIn group also. And we are aligning our research goals with the UN climate promise, the very ambitious plan of reducing global emissions down to 1.5 degrees globally. Yeah, so please follow. So we will be, so it's ongoing. We have still a little around like 1.5 years left of the project. So we will be, yeah, all of the updates will be on our project. Please subscribe to our newsletters and you will get all of the updates from our case study results. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will be sure to make sure that we get everybody's name or email address, or whoever is interested in participating in this collaboration and in driving attention to it, raising awareness, raising funding to support this. And you know, we already have DigiPen and Roblox on the hook for supporting this collaboration, be it in the US or in the many, maybe we'll do a tour of campuses. And we'll get sponsorship from big brands that care to make the difference. So we will work on all that. I really cannot thank you all enough. I thank you, Jane, for and the universe for having us met. I didn't tell you guys how we met, but it was divine intervention. Jasno, thank you for your contribution, for bringing Benjamin, and for the amazing education that my daughters received at DigiPen. Yes.
Our pleasure, our pleasure.
I really thank you all for coming, for your comments. Please save the chat, everybody, and I will be sure to work with my colleagues at Catalyst. And if you need to find me, I'm either on LinkedIn, or I am the co-chair of the US chapter, so you can find me under country chapters as well. Thank you all. Thank you.
Have a good night or a good day. And thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you, Nubna. Thanks. See you all.